Audio visualizers are one of the easiest ways to make visual content for your music. There are a lot of different styles of audio visualizers, but unfortunately I think a few of them are kind of played out. Here's how you can make visualizers that are more unique and tailored to your own style as an artist. So most of my audio visualizer work is done inside of Blender. I have an example here of a scene I set up for a remix of the band Heartbent's track House of Mirrors. If we look in the camera view, you can see it's basically a looping animation of the logo, just kind of bouncing around with some VHS effects in the node editor. A lot of the effectiveness of this audio visualizer, it comes from the lighting. I have a lot of like backlighting on our two logos that plays really well as it kind of moves around the scene. Most of my audio visualizers that I make in Blender revolve around making a scene and then trying to pick an element to add some kind of motion that's reactive to the audio. So for this scene, for the visualizer for my song Cleaver, I pretty much just created a loop, very Evil Dead inspired. There's like these zombie wampas on the outside, pushing up through the windows. There's this one reaching his hand in, evil faces and eyes. Just like modeled the inside of this cabin scene, and then of course the lighting just adds like an extra element. There's like this cellar door that I've added with some extra eyes peering through, right, just to sell that Evil Dead like scene. So again, for this one, a lot of the motion or the visualizer element isn't necessarily coming from this loop. All right, I record this out and it's just a loop, but then when I bring it into DaVinci Resolve, that's where a lot of the magic comes together. We're gonna look at one more, the visualizer for Righteous, and there's a few elements for this one. The main like moving part is this two concentric portals. The way I created these is just by using this layer weight node and a color ramp to mix between an emission shader, which is like the shiny glowy part, and then a transparent shader, which is going to make any of the dark parts of these two mixed noise textures transparent. And because I'm animating the W, which is like the time variable inside of each of these noise textures, as well as like the mix between the two, I create a perfect loop between 0 and 240. And then I basically just duplicated that and used a slightly lighter, closer to white emission for another rotating portal that I scaled down and put inside of the other one. So it kind of looks like two different portals going at the same time. Made a looping animation of the Wampa falling, like waving his arms, rotating a little bit, and his mouth, which I believe is a shape key, scaling up and down. With the volume, it looks a lot more wispy. There's also a particle effect. So we're using a particle system that's emitting this hidden icosphere shape. Because of the motion blur, it looks just like streaks coming out the camera. So that's how I set up my scenes in Blender, kind of the bases for my audio visualizers. You could also do something like take any element, but let's say back to the shader. If we were to change the emission strength, if I take that curve, which is the strength of the emission, if I go to channel, sound to samples, can add an audio file and it will add that. So that's one way that you can do it inside of Blender if you want to animate something specifically inside of the timeline, and then you just have to make sure that it is synced up with the audio that you imported. And then you can go to samples to keys, so it creates like a wave based on the audio samples and then transform those into animation keys. And hide the unselected curves, and then if you hit S and then Y, you can change how much the effect is applied. If you hit grab or G and then Y, you can adjust where like the lowest point is going to be, if the size of the emission is going up in time with the audio samples. For the actual audio visualizer for this, I didn't use this effect. When you have complex scenes, I don't think they like run as smoothly as I would like, so I tend to do a lot of the visualizer stuff inside of DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is essentially where all of my videos come together. So if we look here in DaVinci Resolve, this is the visualizer for Righteous. After I rendered out the portal, the swirls and everything from Blender, the main two things happening inside of this visualizer, so I have this camera shake where if we look down here, parameters actually animated, and I actually animated this by hand, which is kind of crazy. So this motion scale, as you can see it go through the track, is actually adjusting, and Glea just grabbed this, held shift, and adjusted it as the video is playing. So what that does is it records all these keyframes. If you watch the video, when the audio is like really popping off, the keyframes are a lot more chaotic, whereas in lighter parts of the song, like there's not as much happening. And the same is essentially true for the glow effect. So you can see the glow is kind of matching the kicks and the snares in the audio track. If we open up this Fusion composition, you can see what's happening. So I have this glow effect and I have this custom tool, which isn't really necessary. You can do it without using like a custom tool in Fusion, but you do need to install Reactor and the Suck Less Audio modifier Reactor tool, because it has this Suck Less Audio wave. Really what you do is take any of these parameters. So in this case, it's the gamma of the glow. I could show you how to do this with any of the other things though. I could say connect to Suck Less Audio output, and then you'll see now the green spread of the glow is also being affected by that very same audio wave that's going in. You just go into the modifier after you add it and you select your audio wave file. In this case, it's the wave file from the track. Usually you want to adjust these settings, like the scale. I like to filter down to the sub frequencies, 20 to 300 hertz, because it's going to cut out any like jittery stuff going on from noise, from high-end information in the song that you don't need. And then unsigned average usually gives me the most gentle kind of effect that reacts to the audio. You can apply that to motion. Done that in a few of my audio visualizers. I usually do it with like a glow effect, but that is kind of the gist. I want to show off one more audio visualizer that I created, and this was in Touchdesigner. It's for my track Largemouth. So this is going to look kind of chaotic because it's Touchdesigner. Basically, the gist of everything going on in here. So everything from here to here, let me pause this. Basically just following a tutorial that I'll link in the description that demonstrates how to make this seaweed creature looking thing, which is where the name of the track actually came from. Just uses a bunch of small boxes, a bunch of small cubes, and then uses noise and color ramp nodes to create like a textured surfaces, like the spikes, and then it maps a bunch of cubes to the spikes in that noise, and then it kind of condenses them in a circle. I added cube maps. So cube maps are basically just going to give it like that reflective material, right? That's why it's like kind of shiny and blue. And then this animation file here really just gives it like that drifting in space camera animation, just to add some more visual interest. Now where the fun stuff is happening is in Touchdesigner down here. I've imported the audio file and ran it into an audio analysis. This just lets you split audio bands either as actual audio, or you can even split them as like kick and snare. I just use the actual audio, like the low and the high audio bands. The low audio band is going to be connected, so you can see this outflow, to this, which is the noise. And this noise exponent is in control of the amplitude of the like seaweed creature as it's moving around. So it's going to kind of drift in and out of space based on the audio coming in. So it's going to like shrink and expand. So this level, which you can see it affecting the actual image of the noise texture, but the low information from the audio analyzer is getting sent straight to this. So as the track goes on, it's going to adjust that and make it grow and shrink. The high information from the audio analyzer is getting sent to this level node, which is inside of a video feedback loop. And this feedback loop is what's creating this like noisy texture. It's just making it brighter and bloom more as things like hi-hats and snares hit. And you can kind of see that like escalate as it goes through the track. So I hope you found that kind of helpful. And there's a lot of ways that you can create unique audio visualizers that suit your own personal music brand, your own music identity. These are just a few of the ways that I've done it in the past. I want to experiment with some of these techniques going forward. I really like using Touchdesigner. It creates very unique visuals. I want to experiment a little bit more with using audio to keyframes inside of Blender, because there's a lot of really cool things that you can map that to as well. Not just like material settings, but like displacement, geometry nodes. That's like its own rabbit hole. So I hope this was a little bit helpful. Get out there, explore some unique video generating tools, explore what you can do inside of Resolve, inside of Blender, inside of Touchdesigner. All of these softwares are free. Learning how to use them has been really helpful to create a unique visual language for my music. If you have any other topics you want me to cover, or if you want me to go more in depth on one of these softwares, let me know in the comments below. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Links to my Instagram, which I'm most active on, in the description, as well as my new website, which has just some links to some of my work, some things that I've been working on, as well as like contact forms if you want to work with me for any kind of visual or audio content. Cheers, guys.